and we are in line 4. We will not hide them from their children, telling to the generation to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he has done. And so now he's saying that they're not going to hide what these sayings and these parables, from the children, but he's going to tell the children, or telling them to not only to the children there, but also for the ones to come. And so, and in my Bible, I read, these commentaries before, and I think it's very important if we read about it, the history of Israel, and we kind of alluded to some of the history of Israel already. And so, let me go ahead and just read it. And it's the history of Israel. The biblical history of Israel covers 1,800 years and represents a marvelous panorama of God's gracious working through promise, miracle, blessing, and judgment. Israel begins as only a promise to Abraham. For over 400 years, the people of Israel rely on that promise, especially during the period of bondage to Egypt. Finally, in God's perfect timing, he brings the nation out of Egypt with the greatest series of miracles known in the entire Old Testament. And so we talked about these before, how Asaph continues to go back and talk about that Red Sea moment. Commentary adds, this event is called the Exodus, meaning a going out, since it constitutes the miraculous birth of the nation. It is the great act, it is to this great act of redemption that the nation always looks back as a foremost example of God's care for his people. And we talked about that before. Once God has redeemed Israel, he establishes his covenant with them at Mount Sinai. From that point forward, the nation is truly the Lord's possession, and he is their God. The covenant foretells gracious blessings for obedience and severe judgments for disobedience. The rest of Israel's history demonstrates the certainty of that prophecy. Through the periods of conquest, judges, monarchy, exile, restoration, and Gentile domination, Israel is blessed when she obeys and judged when she disobeys. The nation is finally destroyed in AD 70, although this event is not described in the New Testament. Many prophecies, however, promise a future redemption for Israel. The practical value of studying Israel's history is threefold. A, it sets forth examples to be followed or avoided. B, it shows God's control of all historical events, and that he was able to deal with Israel as he chose. C, it serves as a model for all ages of God's kindness and mercy toward his people. And so hence, that's where we get the theme for Psalm 78, God's continued guidance in spite of unbelief. And the children of Israel had a lot of unbelief. And knowing that God had provided and made ways, even if he hadn't done anything else, just to see those waters part from this side to that side, and you walking on dry land, God didn't even have to do no manna. He didn't have to do no quail, and he didn't have to do any water. Because that right there should have been enough to say, well, if God can part the Red Sea and take us out of this bondage, I know that he can do anything. And so let's go and elaborate on 4. It gives us a couple of reference scriptures in Deuteronomy 4:9. And we're going to be a lot in Deuteronomy during this psalm. in Numbers. So 4:9, that says, only take heed to yourself and diligently keep yourself, lest you forget the things your eyes have seen, and lest they depart from your heart all the days of your life. And teach them to your children and your grandchildren. All right. So now remember, this is, we will not hide them from their children. All right. So that's just the 4-part, the A part of 4. And then so the A part of 4 also sends us to Deuteronomy 6:7. That says, you shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. And if we can continue to do that, we shouldn't have to worry about anything else. And now, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and pause here, and then we'll pick it up in the B part of 4.